Welcome to On the Level, broadcasting from the Blue Ocean Network studios here in Beijing. My name is Fergus Thompson. Now, my guest today is still only 25, about the same age as the World Wide Web by some estimates, yet she has already been involved in a number of high-tech internet companies, ranging from a major startup to the cutting-edge area of wearable technology. But today I want to speak to Cheng about a very different yet still internet-linked aspect of her life, and that is her role in the spread of the hugely successful TEDx movement in China. Now, TEDx are short, brief, inspirational talks recorded and then broadcast for free on the internet, and very much linked with the TED Talks movement, and also sharing the slogan, "Ideas Worth Spreading." Well, if you're a bit confused about TED, TEDx and which ideas are being spread, who better to ask about it than an ambassador for TEDx in China? Cheng, welcome to On the Level.
Thank you.
Now, Ellen, first of all, that confusion, TED and TEDx, let's go with these TED Talks at the beginning. What are they exactly about? What's behind them?
TED was started as a conference in California since 1984.
Right.
But after around 2005, like all the talks happening in the conference, they were released online for free and free to watch to people through internet and social media. And it's since then it's becoming so popular. And several months ago, it reached 1 billion view counts.
1 billion?
Yeah,
Right.
for the whole TED Talk.
What sort of people are giving these talks in the TED first?
Cross-disciplinary, like really high technology, visionary like Google co-founders, Amazon founder, or philanthropists like Bill Gates.
Right.
Or musician like Bono, U2, or even UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown.
These are the TED Talks now, the more formal, the bigger the conferences. So you're involved in TEDx, and TEDx has been very successful here in China. What's the difference? What's that X stand for? What's it all about?
I think that's a new way of how our organization could evolve. Like it starts from a conference to a media, but then to a community or a global movement. That's when TED starts to open its brand to local people globally, that it uses TEDx. X stands for independently TED-style events organized by local people globally.
Right.
That after TEDx you can add a location name, like a city name or your street name or your district name or even your school name.
Right, so you run one of these called TEDx
Factory 7 and 8.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's based in this artistic area of Beijing. Just give me an idea of what sort of people you will have speaking, and a little bit what it's like to be at one of these talks if you're actually there in person.
I started to run this since 2010 officially, and our speakers are really like from different disciplines, from art, design, curation, culture, to technology, to business, to NGO. And there are also some musicians, also performers, entrepreneurs, makers. So it's really diverse. The whole idea of TEDx Factory 7 and 8 is to engage the local storytellers to tell their stories within 18 minutes to local public, to engage with the local people, to inspire them to think big, and also to communicate with them in a really new format.
Now, you said 18 minutes, so there are certain criteria. It's not just invite people in a very sort of friendly atmosphere and let's all talk for as long as we want. Tell me a little bit about the TED criteria. What exactly is involved? What sort of restrictions are there?
One of the most amazing criteria for TED itself is 18-minute storytelling time.
Any idea why it was 18 minutes? Why not 15? Why not 20?
I'm not sure whether it's scientific research, but it said that 18 minutes, for 18 minutes that the audience can really focus on the speaker. That if it exceeds 18 minutes, then the audience might get distracted. So within the 18 minutes, you can focus on the speaker and get its complete idea. And also, the speaker can only tell amazing story, like can only share an excellent idea we're spreading, not something out of his or her ego or his or her own company or product, but an idea we're spreading.
Right, so you're trying to avoid people using this as a PR event or a sales event.
That's very essential for a good TEDx event.
So that must be, for you as an organizer, that must be a little bit difficult, because people who have ideas are often very entrepreneurial and they want to get their message out, but they often have a business as well. How do you deal with that? How do you get somebody and say, listen, we just want to hear your ideas. We don't want to hear how much you want to sell your product, no matter how good it is. Is it complicated? It sounds like you have to be a bit of a diplomat.
We try to dig the storyteller residing in oneself out through the TEDx platform. And when I usually communicated with the potential speakers, first of all, I will show them some good TED Talks I personally love.
Okay, so they have an example of what you're aiming for.
Yeah, because everyone on the TED, they share something instead of like how great they are, how many achievements they accomplished. Everyone on TED, they share something really concerns about either humanity or themselves or the world. It's really something that's so essential that it has to use this platform to convey. So through TEDx, we also convey the same thing to our own speakers. We first trust them have the potential to discover the most amazing stories within themselves from their career or from their daily life. And when we communicated with them, we can usually capture that point, and we try to help them evolve the idea of how they should share that part of the story to the audience through TEDx platform.
So how long does that process take? Say, first of all, do you approach people or do they approach you, or is it a mixture of the two?
It's mutual.
Right.
Like sometimes,
So you have a potential speaker. That process of a sort of a training, if you like, or a drawing out, how long does that take, and who does it? Do you do it?
It depends. I had a volunteer team, and some of them are inviting the speakers they're really interested in. So we have a common speaker guidelines that I will first communicate with the whole curation team, like how you should approach the speakers you want. Then like we will discuss which one speaker could fit our theme, because every different TEDx has a theme that we want to explore further. Then we go ahead to hunt for the speakers. Usually, I think on average, the whole communication process should be, I think, 6 hours to 10 hours. It also like varies depending on like different speakers, because some speakers they're natural storytellers.
Right.
They're very experienced in speaking, but some of the people they may have trouble like really.
It's said that everybody has a story inside them, but not everybody can tell that story. So your job in these cases is to help that person tell the story.
I think TED is strong enough to set up an example of how a good storyteller should be. I think like TEDx just convey the TED spirit to more people and inspire those people to discover their potentials.
Right.
Yeah.
You have described yourself as a curator and a storyteller. A storyteller is sort of self-explanatory. Tell me a little bit about the curator side of it. You mentioned curation there. Curating what?
I think it should be like curating different stories. Usually when people think of curator, they may think of like an art exhibition happening in a gallery or museum. It's like a curator's role in this case is to really pull in different works of different artists, just to put a new narrative upon the previous theme. And our role in this case is the same. Like, because each of the speakers we find, they have really different lives and different happenings and the different things to share. And our job is to pick the point, the story that we think most fit in our theme, and we just pull them together. Also, they are from really different disciplines. Like, how could you use one theme to pull in different speakers from different areas?
So how do you do that? How do you roll them in on one theme?
We find the common part. Like when we choose the theme, that the theme really explores a humanity issue. Like it's really concerned with every individual. And we will like use this aspect because it's like the commonness, like the common. So we will put this point out, and we will use the common theme to communicate with different speakers and provoke their understanding of this common theme from their own background. And then we just connect the different dots together and tell a new story out.
This is something you're obviously passionate about. You spend a lot of time on it. What drew you into it in the first place, and what do you get out of it?
First, I saw a TED Talk. Then I traced back that talk, and I found the TED.com, this website. And then I watched some other TED Talks. I found it so amazing. Like, I've never seen such things before. That was 2009. Then I gradually found some Chinese people. They also found the TED from other channels, and we started to talk through online tools, through internet. Then in 2010, I happened to know an American guy who was awarded as TED Fellow that year. He's an American artist working in China at that time. Then we said, why not start a TEDx event ourselves? And at that time, a gallery called UCCA, it's art center, Woodlands Contemporary Center of Art. It could provide a free venue to us. Then our job is just to select the speakers and apply for the TEDx license. So the first event was very simple, only 4 speakers, and the audience is only like 100. And we had a cocktail reception after the event, and everyone is happy. So that's the first event.
You were happy.
I think everyone is happy.
No matter how simple these events are, there's got to be some financial input. Where does the money come from? Does money come from the original TED conference? Do you charge in? Tell me how these things are funded.
TED only gave us support, like community support or mentor support or sorts of these things. So we are responsible for the fundraising of the event ourselves. But as my experience grows, so I had like more connections or more partners who are willing to support me in the process. So it's really depending on how you can engage with local partners, because until now I found that those partners become stakeholders with us because they also want to have an amazing platform to express themselves. Like the company, it also needs TEDx to show that they are also innovative, they are also appealing to creative community. They are also willing to support these sort of innovation events as well.
So they're actually sponsoring the event. Does that mean, as in a sort of a sports event, you get your name on the stage or something like that, or is it more under the surface?
The guideline is the companies can't interfere with the content of the TEDx events. The logo can be put on our major distribution, like our videos, on our program guide, brochure, poster, or some other places outside of the venue.
Right.
And also the company representative can't speak at the event. That's a very strict rule. So the basic guideline is the companies can't interfere with the content.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned 100 people coming to one there, and these guidelines and rules. These are guidelines and rules, criteria from TED conference, from the TED Talks. Tell me about those. What sort of criteria are there, for example, in terms of numbers of people? Are there any other rules that you have to follow?
Another very important rule, I think, it's the quality control from TED headquarters on different TEDx. So the rule is if the TEDx organizer hasn't attended the major TED conference, then the TEDx event he or she organized can only be under 100 audience size.
Okay.
But if you go to a TED conference, you can organize the audience over 100 people.
Larger
That's very strict.
Right.
Yeah.
This is China, and there are problems with gatherings of people. Sometimes the government here can be nervous about people gathering in large amounts. 100 is large enough. If it's more than 100, perhaps worse. Is it more? Do you have any particular difficulties relating to working in China in terms of permissions, licenses, even people in entertainment sometimes have to go through a lot of bureaucracy? Do you have to do that as well?
It depends. I think it depends on how ambitious we are and how many trouble we desire. So
as long as you're not looking for trouble.
We really love challenges in this process because it really push you towards the ultimate goal you want.
Right.
So if we want to have like 1,000 audience, we can make it happen. It's more complicated, obviously. But the sense of achievement will be very big for us because we influence 1,000 people, and we just create the atmosphere that people love to see. Because really for these years, every TEDx event I organize, that the audience gets so happy because they really haven't have a chance to have such a kind of event that every speaker is so efficient and is such an amazing storyteller, and they're really from different disciplines that
so
they share stories.
But you can get through those bureaucratic permissions that you will need permission for a certain number of people. You can get through those once you show that, look, we're talking about ideas here, right?
Basically, it's like this, because we are happening outside of college. Like we can choose our own venue.
Right.
Like if we pay the venue fee or the venue is willing to sponsor us, then the venue itself deal with the bureaucracy process.
Yeah.
But you really mentioned a good point, is if these events happen in school, in college, that it's really complicated to deal with the bureaucracy because the college, especially the college administration, they were so panicked, like, okay, what's TEDx? It's American brand, it's like American propaganda or something, or idea we're spreading. What kind of idea do you want to spread? So the college students really undergo lots of trouble in dealing with this. It also depends on like which school or which departments of the college they're dealing with.
Well, you mentioned their ideas worth spreading. What kind of ideas? You presumably TEDx itself tries to steer away from politics or anything. Is that the case?
TED itself, it claims itself as a non-profit organization, that it's non-partisan,
right.
That it's not political, it's not religious.
Right.
It just spread idea which is scientific, authentic, and excellent, that could provoke individual growth or the world-changing landscape. So it's very strict on what kind of idea they should spread, and it also controls from the very beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned schools and universities here, and it does seem to be particularly successful in these areas, students or people just out of college and so on. What sort of numbers of organizations are we talking about in China, and are most of them linked to colleges and schools?
I think until now, since TED starts to open its license for TEDx, there were nearly 300 events happen in China until now.
Right.
I
That's
think
just over, what, 5 years or something like that?
Since 2009, yeah, almost 5 years. I think in school, including colleges and the high schools, I think there are more than 250 happening in education institutions.
So these are mostly educational students, but do Factory 798 is not, for example. This is, as we said, an artistic area. It's something independent from schools. Is there a difference in the type of speaker you attract and one that might be going to a high school, for example?
I think it also depends on the organizer themselves, like how they want to convey the idea of their own TEDx and how the reality is. Like if the college is very, maybe not very good word, but conservative, that the organizer might only be able to attract a limited number of speakers, like their own professors or some active young leaders or their own student peers. Right. And the audience might only be the students in the school themselves. But there are also some schools that they want to really engage with the outside world, so they invite some speakers that are not related to education or to their schools. So it should be very similar to our own event, TEDx Factory 78.
These are recorded on video, and then they are broadcast online, and people around the world are watching them, sometimes millions of people. Do you get any sort of help on the technical side as to how you are going to record these and the equipment you use and what mistakes not to make, and this training essentially?
TED gave us some like basic training online usually, but if you go to some conference organized by TED, like TED conference or TEDx summit or these sorts of things, they will also have some workshop. And in our own country, we also organize some TEDx workshop. Sometimes we learn ourselves from the very beginning, and sometimes we might screw it up because we were so inexperienced. But sometimes like your technical skills could improve in this process, and there are also some professionals who are willing to help you in this process.
So apart from spreading ideas, you yourselves are learning from these events, from putting them out and passing on that knowledge to other organizers. You are what's called a TEDx ambassador in China. Now, what does that involve? Who appoints you an ambassador, and what do you have to do?
I received the invitation of TEDx ambassador in 2011. And at that time, my role is to, the first is to monitor the branding issues. Because TED doesn't have an office in China, but this community is growing here. So there should be some people who are experienced in organizing TEDx events and understand the TEDx spirit and the rules, so that they can help monitor the branding issues. If one TEDx organizer, he does not understand the rule or he disobeys the rule, then we can help them understand it directly. And the second is to foster the collaboration of regional community, because TEDx basically is like a mutual supporting and a collaborative community, and when several TEDx events collaborate, they can really foster the whole atmosphere in this city or in the whole region. That's the missions when I was appointed, but gradually, like I also explore like how I can do more to help the community grow. Like I might sometimes discuss with the TED headquarters like how they can better improve from their side or my side to help the community grow, because China is really a special place concerned with the whole global community. One important aspect is China and other countries, we use different social media tools. Like in China, we use Weibo, YouTube, Youku.
These are equivalents of Twitter and YouTube, because they're not available here, they're blocked. So we have these similar, sometimes even better, but different.
Yeah, so they are like gap.
Right, in communication with outside China.
Usually, TEDx organizers in China, they have trouble understanding what's happening outside. Okay. Probably the first is because of language barrier, because we communicate in Chinese mainly. The other is like they really can't access Twitter, Facebook, YouTube normally. I think they really don't know like what's happening outside. So that's kind of like my role. Probably like how to bridge in the gap, or how to better help them to understand.
Right, because it can be done if you can get a virtual private network, a VPN, and you can access outside, but not everybody knows that or is aware of how complicated it costs money. Yeah. In terms of how applicable this is to various areas, China has a very a highly developed, very modern East Coast and a much less developed central and western areas. Now, you're using high-tech equipment, you're putting all this online. How applicable is that when you get to poor villages outside? Do the ideas spread that far?
That's really the case, because I think 90% of TEDx events currently in China happen in Eastern Coast. And there are really only few TEDx events, and they were struggling in the inner landlocked. But I think the situation is getting better because like more people, especially students, they heard about TED from different channels, so they gradually learn the TEDx event too. So there are also many students or many people in the southwestern or even northwestern area like Xi'an, or Chongqing, Chengdu, like these major cities in the western area. They start to organize their own event and they try to connect TEDx to their own city expression, like how the TEDx brand could help renovate their own city or their own community.
There are some other organizations here doing similar things. I've come across these when I was online, VRisen, Tiandao, OYT. Very similar, getting ideas out there and doing talks. Do you have contact with these, or is it rivalry? You know, this is our organization, we have our brand, or is everybody more or less on the same page?
I think basically it's a very good thing for more of these events happening in China. I think that's for really awareness of public education, and the people need it more and more. So I think basically it's a good thing. And also it's obviously, to me, sometimes I will see some clues that they copy TED at some point, because they also use a TED format but under different name.
They're sort of, they're TED-like events, but they set them up themselves. Yeah. I think some are. Why do they branch off? Why not just follow the TEDx? Is there a reason why they would?
I think one part is TEDx is non-profit, basically. That also it's under TED brand name. It's not like your independent name. Another aspect is probably TED is still a foreign brand. Like it's also a little bit difficult for Chinese people to accept a foreign brand in the sense. And I think setting up an independent conference, if it's successful, and it's also necessary, like for some really local Chinese brand, local Chinese conference, to engage local Chinese people with real Chinese storytellers on the stage. I think that's a good thing. And concerned with the competitive landscape, I think it happens in a very trivial way. Like we might share the same speakers. Yeah, like if a TEDx event managed to get one speaker, then the other events might also get that speaker on board.
You said there was 300 events so far, a great number of organizations already set up in China. 10 years' time, TEDx in China, where do you see it? I think it will reach to really small areas like no one has ever heard of. Like probably it's like a small village in a very small town and in a remote province in China, and they use this global networking to discover really local story to the global platform, and to really discover the self-expression of that area to people around the globe. I think that's really like how we can connect the whole world within the same motivation or the same desire of storytelling. Well, Ellen Cheng, Ambassador for TEDx in China, I wish you luck in telling your own story and helping other people to tell their stories. Thanks for coming on The Level.